Okay, what is it like working with my mom? So I get this question a lot, and a lot of people say it with a lot of conviction, like, oh, what's it like working with your mom? And my answer is always, it is the best experience. She is somebody that I am so inspired by, and somebody that has created such an incredible career and a legacy where I am just so excited to be able to innovate with her and to be able to learn from her experience and her expertise, and, traveling the world with my mom and going to conferences in Paris, and all these things are of course the upside. And to get to spend extra time with my mom, I live in Miami. She lives in Wisconsin, so that's just such a blessing to me. But of course, I know what everyone's talking about when they say that. And one thing that I think is kind of funny is that, if you had a business partner that wasn't your mom and you got in a horrible fight and you just went at it with each other, it would probably be pretty damaging for the relationship and for the company. And because it's my mom, if we ever, every so often, we'll get into we'll go at it. And then it's okay, are we making an omelet for breakfast, or are we, going to have a smoothie? And it's over in 5 seconds. So that is amazing. And of course, one other thing, as I've watched my other friends launch companies, is that the amount of trust I have in my mother, with our finances, with our work, and how much we're both putting into the company, could never, ever be instructed in an operating agreement in the way that we have. So it's the trust is bound by blood, and there's no one in the world that I trust more with this investment of time and resources. And I feel so extremely grateful to work with my mom in this way.
Okay, I'm going to cry.
My mom doesn't like to be on camera, so this is her first time. And
it is not my first time.
It's your first time for Hemptress.
It is my first time for Hemptress.
She should enjoy being on the camera, though, because she is so beautiful and she has such a good representation of what it looks like to age beautifully. And I am very proud to have you on camera with me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so what is it like to work with my daughter? Well, it's truly a dream. Okay, so working and growing a business with your daughter or with my daughter is something that I actually never anticipated was going to happen. So she twisted my arm, and I thought I was extremely busy in evolving some of my own other businesses, which included hemp. And it ended up turning into Hemptress. And what's really amazing is that Hemptress is now is front stage and center in my life of business. And I have done quite a few things in my career, and it is one of the most fulfilling and the most meaningful approaches to business that I've ever had the pleasure of. And the thing that I think is most jaw-dropping for me is to be able to be a mom and then see your child and your daughter, and I see this with my son too, grow into what you created. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, because you're like, oh my God, I did that and she's saying that, and that's what happened because of me. But most of the time it's the beauty of being able to see your own children, or my own daughter, Chandlar, be passionate about our earth, be passionate about health and wellness, and be passionate about how are we going to raise the bar for the collective humanity. And I used to be in the food industry, and it is just like a natural segue to be able to be in the beauty industry and to create beauty from the outside in this time instead of just from the inside out. So being with Chandlar and having a business with Chandlar is an absolute dream. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I can't really come up with one negative thing. Chandlar just happens to be an extremely talented person and an overachiever. And that's something that I'm very blessed with.
That is so sweet, Mom, and I so appreciate that. And just a funny memory is coming to mind when I was a kid, because now I'm going to gush about my mom because she is so talented. Di ran a interior design company. She converted our third generation agriculture company into one of the leading standards of ethical and regenerative agriculture. And she started her own brands, and she was in the cannabis industry and this and that. And she was designing people's events and bat mitzvahs, and she was on the board at the art museum, and she was raising money. And it's like, I couldn't even believe it. And I remember as a young girl, I was like, oh my God, how do I learn all these things? Like, I have to know how to like produce an event and like fundraise for the art museum and run a company and run my family. Like, how am I ever going to learn all these things? And it's so funny because as I've developed, I've realized that we each have our own special talents. And of course, I've developed a lot of the talents that my mother has, and I'm so grateful for that. But one thing that's really interesting about us working together is that we do both have our unique set of talents, and they just work in synergy with one another. And where my mother is weak, I'm strong, and where I'm weak, she's strong. And it's just a really awesome balance between the two of us.
It's also really awesome to have a business that's multi-generational, which I'm used to already being in a family business that was multi-generational. But I think where this benefits the consumer is that we have I consider our product that all of the products that we're going to be creating, the ones that we already have created, to be have generational agility, I call it, because generational agility, I don't believe that, there's just one type of product for young people and one type of product for old people, especially when we're talking about the skin. But because we do have to think about our skin as being something that is an organ in our body, and how are we taking care of it? No different than what are we eating. We don't just eat certain things for young people and eat certain things for old people. It doesn't really make sense. But the thing that it helps in business to have generation agility is there is quite a difference between the generation that we have now in business when it comes to technology and social media and marketing and so forth. And yes, I know that I have had a lot of experience and success in this area of branding and marketing and creating companies through a certain ethos. But having somebody coming from, another generation or two generations younger than you, to bring in that insight and that perspective of what is really going to hit home and how are we going to succeed, you need that. You need to have a business of leadership that's well-rounded through different generations. So it's really a plus to be able to work with, not just your own peers and not just your own, your own generation. It's really important to be able to incorporate that for our business to be successful.
My mom has had an incredible career in the food industry, and I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about the work that you did in the food industry with regenerative agriculture and how that transitioned in the cannabis industry and landed you here at Hemptress.
Okay, so what I want to say is that it's always been a really important part of my own personal ethos to make sure that whatever I'm associated with or what I'm producing is as beneficial as possible. So in the food industry, is it benefiting the earth? Is it benefiting the humans that are on the earth and all creatures upon it? Are we raising our animals and the food that we eat in a way that is going to be benefiting all the best that we can? So are we actually being healthful and mindful about that? And then, if you are, we call that a triple bottom line in the business world. It's
your return on investment, your social return on investment, and your return on the investment for the environment.
And so now we have a lot of buzzwords about environment and so forth going on right now. And, when I started this 20 years ago, or started going down this path, if it's now 30 years ago, but, they're saying, oh, you're an environmentalist. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a little bit of an environmentalist. I absolutely am. But, what I really am is somebody that's trying to raise the bar in all areas, to be very holistic. When I say holistic, I'm talking about being whole, as in WHOLE, being holistic in the way and the thoughtful way of how do we impact our businesses. So, I think this is something that Chandlar has kind of incorporated into her own life, is that, are we creating businesses that also are a benefit? So it's one thing to be a charity or to be a nonprofit, And most nonprofits and most charities, their objective is to be benefiting something or a person or the earth or the world or something. But we can also do that through industry. So if our industry is going to be profitable and at the same time is going to be improving something that's important for the health and wellness of the earth and the health and wellness of people, then, we call that ethical capitalism or conscious capitalism.
Or social entrepreneurship.
Or social entrepreneurship. There's a lot of different words for it now. And I think that that's really important.
I think that's the future of
I do
how,
too.
We have a lot of issues in our society, and how are we going to dig ourselves out of this frankly mess. And I think one of the most sustainable ways to do that is with social enterprise. And if we can create businesses that are sustainably producing profit, sustaining themselves, not relying on corporate giving or donations, et cetera, that is really creating meaningful, lasting, sustainable change in the world. And that's, I know, a shared goal of ours.
Yeah, and the main thing is lasting, because when you have to, and I certainly believe in charities and donations and all that philanthropy and so forth, but as you said, you're always having to, go out and get donations. So you're not self-sufficient and you're not self-sustainable. So by creating businesses and creating, using capitalism gets such a negative,
connotation.
Yeah, a negative image. But, it's just, how are you using it? And are you using it for a way that can benefit the earth and those that live upon the earth itself? We've become really disconnected from, what the earth is producing, what we're putting either in our mouth or on our body. And it was just a natural progression to want to do something about putting what we put on our skin. That has always been a focus of mine. Chandlar knows it because I was preaching about this since the day that she's been born, about what you put on the largest organ of your body. For me, as a female who is now, in the second half of my life, I find it very irritating to go to the store, even if it is a more clean brand, and there's literally 20 things there on the shelf, and I literally want to buy 8 of them. And there's like, this one has this ingredient in it, this one has that ingredient in it, this one has that ingredient. I want to put all of those ingredients on my skin and have the benefit of all of them. So I always felt it was a little bit of a ripoff, that like the personal care industry and the beauty industry is always taking advantage of women, and they're making all these different separate products because they want you to buy more stuff. Okay, I get it. I'm in business and so forth. But you know what? My time is I don't have a lot of time, and most people don't have enough money to buy 8 products or 12 or 10 or whatever. And the thing is how are you even going to put all of them on you? And how are they all going to even make their way and do their job? So when Chandlar really wanted to start this, for her own personal needs, I'm like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it. We're going to do it so that like what we are giving and producing and providing to everybody is going to literally cut out 4 things or 5 things or 1 thing or whatever it is. It's not going to just be like 1 little active ingredient or 2 little active ingredients in a bottle, and then you got to buy the other one and the other one. I go, we're going to put as much as we can in a bottle that is going to really be impactful for the health of the skin. And we had to learn our way through this. And we've taken our time, and we've invested in a lot of education and a lot of research. But this is not something new for me. I had to do the same thing in the food industry. I didn't grow up being a farmer, but I became a farmer. And I learned how to create animal systems that were sustainable and that were organic and that were regenerative. And we're just using that same philosophy and stuff as, let's find out what the skin needs, and then let's use ingredients that are coming from nature that will enhance your body's health, not just your skin's health, but your whole body's health. Because like you say, we really absorb a lot of what we put on our skin. Unfortunately, even being in a chlorinated pool, I think is something like, if you're in there for a half an hour, it's like equivalent to drinking like 30 ounces of the water. It's just ridiculous that we don't really even think about what we put on our skin. So this was such a nice progression to get into the beauty industry from the outside in versus from the inside out.
I love that. And one thing that you made me think of is I wanted to give the listeners a little behind the scenes. And this is something we both feel really proud of, is we feel like we're representing the consumer, that we're representing you. And, we go to these industry-wide, worldwide conferences. There's one in cosmetics and it's in Paris every other year. We've gone 2 years in a row. We're going to be attending again this year. And we are advocating for the consumer versus, the industry dictating what the consumer needs. It's like, okay, what do we want as consumers? We want something that is going to take the place of 5 products, that's going to create healthy skin, that's going to repair the DNA, that's not going to have any of the negative side effects of the petrochemicals and how that ages your skin. And we're going to make it work for multiple generations. Like what my needs and for me to preserve, the healthy DNA in my skin is the same as what my mom needs to repair her skin. So we feel really proud that we can go to Paris and we can represent the consumer instead of, big legacy brands and corporations dictating what women and men need, what they should put on their skin, what they should, use in their daily lives. So we're excited that we can be an indie brand that can advocate for what does the consumer really want, what does the consumer need, and offer a different avenue for people that are interested in luxury beauty, that are interested in science and health and wellness, and put it all together and use our talents to make something really amazing.
One thing that Chandlar said, that you said on one of the podcasts that you were recording, was like, we go and we look at all these different ingredients, and there's some really great ingredients out there, I want to let you know. And then we find that what the consumers don't realize is that the ingredients have ingredients.
Yeah.
So we're like, yeah, we want, that's exactly what we want. And then we go to look at it and then we're like, oh, it's an base of propylene glycol.
We're like, oh, there's a peptide from the Arctic Ocean and it's amazing and it's this and that. And oh, by the way, it has propionidiol, which is like another version.
It's another preservative or another way of it. And it's just like, okay, great. Now that one's off the list. So, we really go out of our way to make sure that what is going into our brand, we believe that there is truly art in this brand. And we believe that the inside, what you're putting on your skin is really a work of art. But we also believe in branding. I mean, I've created quite a few brands in my lifetime. And one of the things that I have a firm belief in is that is entrepreneurship in itself, but is in art and in creativity and in not following the same exact formula of branding and everything that everybody else does. Everything looks the same. Everything's done in a very generic way. So, when we were in Paris at one of these conferences, I was really impressed with an artist that that we saw that had worked with Philippe Starck, and the Mob House is a hotel in Paris. And I called up that graphic artist and I said, I'd really like to hire you for our new brand. And Chandler's like, that'll never happen.
Oh, no. I said we could never afford him, this accomplished artist with this
And
gorgeous book
right.
at a Philippe Starck hotel in Paris. I'm like, we got to be conservative with our budget. My mom's like, oh, please, I'm emailing him. And turns out we could afford him and he's worth every single penny. And he now works for Hemptress almost full time.
Yeah.
And we're super proud to share his designs with the world and to promote his art. And we can only hope that in the future, we're already working with different, fashion companies to do brand collaborations. And Hemptress really is a lifestyle. We believe in the lifestyle brand of, my boyfriend actually says this, preach what you practice instead of practice what you preach. Like, preach what you practice. So what do you do in your daily life? Do you wake up? Do you meditate? Do you go to sleep on time? Do you eat good food? And with Hemptress, it just is naturally, engaged in this lifestyle of preaching what we practice. And that's kind of my mom's whole life's work. And I'm very proud to continue that legacy.
And it's not just preaching what you practice, it's also creating what you want and what you need. So the preaching you could even, we do a lot of preaching, don't get me wrong, but we could take that word preaching out and we could put it in the word create.
Create what you practice.
Yeah, create what you want, create what you practice, expand upon it. And I think there's a lot of, one thing that I would like to say, it's that's something that Chandlar touched on before, is we really are hoping to encourage other brands to actually raise the bar. We have already, just with this one product, been able to help certain ingredient companies that we work with to actually produce things for us without certain preservatives in it.
Certain chemical synthetic preservatives that have data that show that they are not good for your health.
And now they're not going to just do it for us, but they're trying to do that for all of the ingredients that they're making. So we believe, not just in Hemptress, we believe in health and wellness and creating healthy products. And we certainly can't do it all by ourselves, and we shouldn't be the only one doing this. There's a few good brands out there that have healthy products, but it's very difficult to do.
And it's difficult to find as a
So
consumer.
yeah, it's difficult to find as a consumer. It's difficult to find as a formulator to find the ingredients. It's difficult. So we've been really excited to bring this to the consumer and to market, and we have a lot of really exciting products that are following this up, and we're excited to travel on this journey together.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Chief.
For coming into the podcast, for sharing, for raising me in the way that you did. And I think about my life sometimes in every single moment of my life. And I've been through some very severe health problems, which, all of this broken path led me to here. And there's nothing on earth I'd rather do than wake up every morning in service to our community, in service to our earth, and in collaboration with my mother. So I'm super, super grateful. And I will never take this for granted. So thank you, Mom, for everything you do for me.
Thank you too, baby.
Love you.
Love you too.